Okay, so we have our milk replacer powder pre-weighed out here. We have 50 grams. We're going to add it to the Whirl Pack, where we're going to add the Sudan Red to. And the color that we're shooting for is the color of this pink sticky note.
I should have mentioned before that the Sudan Red, what it does is it'll bind with free fat or available fat in the diet.
Wear gloves when you're working with the Sudan Red, because it will stain you. We're just going to go for a little bit of amount to start with. Leave some air in the bag so that when you shake it, you have room to shake. I'm going to call that pretty close.
Yep.
I think I have to. We usually pre-warm it. Do you want me to go through that?
Okay.
Okay. So before we perform the test, we pre-warm the beaker so that it doesn't lose as much heat from the water that we want it to, so it stays at the right temperature. So the beaker is pre-warmed. We're going to go ahead and lower our mixing machine.
You just pre-warm the beaker with hot water? Is that?
Yes,
Okay.
at the temp that we need it at, which is at 126 Fahrenheit. So we're going to add the water to the beaker, 450 mils.
You're just recreating whatever your drink milk would be on the percent solids of the label.
It's important to have the propeller off center of the beaker. and that this is close to the bottom without scraping the bottom.
This is this gadget that we purchased from Europe, and we can get you the specs on it and the costs of it. Our emulsifier suppliers guided us on what to purchase. The goal is to just mimic whatever would be in a veal or large calf ranch type blender to best mimic the agitation that's occurring on farm.
We're going to start the mixer. Here it tells us what we're going to do. We're going to start it at 1100 RPM, so we're going to go ahead and start it with the water in it. And you can see where it works up to that. And then we're going to add our powder to that. And then we're going to let it mix for 1 minute.
You can do this with a kitchen handheld blender, but the problem is you're creating so much energy and putting so much energy into the blend that you're going to break the encapsulation sometimes inadvertently, and it's not going to mimic what's going on the farm. That's the beauty of this system and why we invested in it and why large veal feed companies do this, so that they can best mimic what's going on in a real farm.
Okay, we're at the end of our stirring process, so we're going to go ahead and shut the blender off. Raise up the mixer. And then we're going to take our blended product and dump it into our 500 ml graduated cylinder. We are going to let this sit in the cylinder. We're going to look at it initially right now, so it looks very well blended. And then 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and 1 hour. And what we're going to watch for is separation at the top between the mixture, and to see if there's a darker red line that forms in there indicating that the fat is separating.
The other thing you can keep in mind is if there's some foam on top of the solution, that's indicative that there is no fat separation going on, so it's another indicator. And we can send you pictures. I'm sure this mocha placer will turn out just fine. We'll stop this video now, but we can send examples of fats that did separate, and what you would see is a clear or a dark red band where all of this Sudan Red is going up with that fat that's not protein encapsulated anymore, and so fat of course floats, just like the lard in your kitchen from the bacon that you cooked. And that's what we're trying to prevent with good encapsulation, and this is your tool to measure it. So you can quantify and measure, and you're not assuming. There are 3 pieces of information I'd like to close this video with. The first is the invoice from the IKA Works Eurostar 60 control package, the nice blender that we use that mimics what occurs in a veal farm or Western calf ranch or a large dairy. The type of agitation, it best mimics the type of agitation that is in a common milk mixer on farm, so it's optimal for doing these Sudan Red tests. The goal is to mimic that so that the damage that you could potentially do to the encapsulation is going to be something similar to what you're experiencing on farm. You can see that that's about, let's see, it's about almost $2,900. The second video, or the second slide, is in 3 beakers, and it just shows the one in the middle with the 11 on it. And that one has some fat separation. You can see beaker number 10, it looks like the fat is evenly dispersed, so it's not separating out, it's not free fat, it's not that bacon grease in your kitchen is the nice way to think about it. And the one on the right looks pretty good too. And then the last one is an example of some really bad encapsulation that separated out in 15 minutes. You can see the deep dark red band, and on the left it's at 15 minutes, and then it progressively gets worse as it sits there longer at 30 and 45 minutes. So that's a case of what you're not to do.